Welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D, your direct line to Randy Dowdy and David Hula, here to help fellow farmers unlock the potential in their fields. Are you looking to implement best practices that maximize ROI? You've come to the right place. Real value, real yield, real ROI. Breaking Barriers with R&D starts now. Breaking Barriers is brought to you by Pioneer Brand. Vorseed Enlist corn outyields the competition by 7.1 bushels per acre, thanks to elite genetics, industry-leading traits, and herbicide flexibility. Plant Vorseed Enlist corn in the 100th year of Pioneer and plant your best year yet. By Calmer Cornheads, home of the world's only all-weather stalk roll. Learn more at calmercornheads.com. By exclusive varieties from Zavato soybean seed. Change the seed, change the game. Learn more at zavatosoybeanseed.com. And by Golden Harvest. At Golden Harvest, the bag is just the start. We combine trusted local agronomic expertise with data-driven innovations like the Golden Harvest Experience, GHX, to deliver tailored solutions built for your acres. To learn more, visit goldenharvestseeds.com.
Well, welcome to another edition of Breaking Barriers with R&D. And I'm the D side, clearly not the R side. I should be King side. That's what I should be, Dowdy.
I'm gonna throw that in there. We're gonna fix it. This King David, we're gonna give you all the proper. If I could have, I'd have thrown out rose petals and had a red carpet for you to walk out on this morning when you walked outside. But everybody still knows who the king is.
Well, it's my good pleasure to be with you again today, Dowdy. You mentioned the rose petals. Miss Sandy and myself, we just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary last weekend, and we went down to a restaurant in Asheville, North Carolina. We went to see her uncle, Boyd. He's been struggling a little bit of health right now, so she wanted to go down and see him. But the restaurant, when I made reservations, I told them it was their anniversary. And dang if they didn't have some petals on the table, buddy. So I said, here we go. So I got a brownie point this weekend.
Did you get some mileage out of it?
We're working on it, buddy.
I hear you. Well, whatever it takes, right? It's a thought that counts, and more than one way.
Yeah, but well,
what are you doing? I see you in a tractor or either a cab or something. What are you doing?
You never know where I'm going to be. I'm in a 800R deer spreader, and spreading lime. I'm at Curl's Neck, the Western farm that a lot of people. A little history again, right on the banks of James. But Dowdy, when I came through the gates, I mean there were Canadian geese and blue geese and snow geese all around, and I'm just seeing them get up, and because the migratory birds have clearly moved in, and this farm, I don't know, it's about 1,400 some acres of cropland, and it holds 10 to 12,000 Canadian geese and anywhere from 2 to 4,000 snow and blue geese. And it is a wildlife haven for the birds, but it doesn't lend itself well to cover crop or
What are they eating this time of year?
Well, I usually plant some small grain up here because we got Chesapeake Bay, and we got a great cost share program. But last year they ate all of it up. We had 1,200 acres of wheat planted up here, and there wasn't one stalk more than a quarter inch above the ground when they came and inspected it in December and January. So they're just eating whatever's left. If we got any soybeans or corn on the ground, they clean that up just like a hog. And I would like to think they're eating some of the weeds up here, but I don't know what they're finding right now because we didn't plant any small grain.
Well, what you do, David, is you buy the seed, you show where you planted it, you collect that NRCS payment, and then you have 85% crop revenue protection on the wheat, and you had a crop failure.
Yeah. Well, we can clearly get the crop failure, but they come out and they inspect it, and you got to have a certain amount of cover. Well, the geese just don't let it come up and get tall enough to get that cover. But we get the root system. So Tim, when we had Tim Woodward in as a guest several podcasts ago, he talked about cover crops, and we're getting the root system, but we just can't get the foliage. And then,
Would they eat legumes the same way, or is it just small grain?
well, we planted some Austrian winter peas last year as well. Because, I'm like, all right, let's try something different. I said, we'll give it a try. Well, they just pull, that's a shallower seeded crop. So we planted that about a quarter to a half inch deep, and they pulled it right up and ate it all, ate the berry, ate the grain. It was gone. So that was a costly experiment because we did about 170 acres of it. Like, surely they can't eat it all, but there was none of that left. So it's, great great corn and soybean ground, but small grain, it can grow some small grain, but just, the wildlife just gets to it. And, I know our guest, Alex Harrell, today, he talks about wildlife is in deer. And, here we're fighting deer and you raise deer.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I like it for sure. But on this goose or geese thing, we got a 40-acre lake up there in Michigan, and David, I bet it was 250 on the lake this past week, and they're not the most quiet animal or bird in the world. I mean, they make a lot of racket. Is there a residence or anything on that property? I can't imagine having, what'd you say, 10,000?
Yeah, they come out here and check them, the game and inland department, they'll check and they'll give us an estimate of how many here. But yeah, 10 to 12,000 when they're all here, and then several thousand blue and snow geese. And the blue and snow geese, they got a different whining sound. The Canadians, and the other thing is it's difficult. We're right across the river from Hopewell, one of the cities, a lot of industry, and it's never dark here, Dowdy. It's just there's just light pollution or whatever they call it. You can see. You don't need a flashlight. You can see to walk in the fields. So they can eat 24/7 if they want to.
Wow. But is it that noisy when that many birds is out there just raising havoc?
No, usually when they're eating, kind of quiet. They try to keep their mouths full, and then you got a couple of them are watching and checking things out, and if they see anything evidence of somebody coming or approach them, then they'll start raising some cane. And then when they're flying around, oh yeah, you can. I imagine if you're trying to deer hunt and listen to the deer walking towards you, and the geese are all flying, you're not going to hear a whole lot of leaves rustling.
Hmm, that's interesting. Well, so you spreading lime. Did you get the rain? I think you said y'all were supposed to possibly get some rain or something.
So, yeah, we didn't get the rain that we had thought we were going to get. So it allowed the lime. I didn't have any lime left on the ground. We got it all up, but they brought me 3 loads yesterday, and I'm going to get 4 loads this morning. So we got 175 tons of spread, and with usually that'd be so many acres, but we were doing that 1 acre grids that you talk about, Dowdy, and a lot of VRT stuff. So there's sections that are getting no lime, and I max it out at 2 tons air ground, and still I need some mag because their base sat's a little bit lower. So we're using dolomitic lime on this particular farm.
Well, that was my next question. Are you using dolomitic lime or your high cal? I guess you got access to both, right?
Yeah, we do. The dolomitic's clearly the closest and easiest to get. You can go another 50 miles to the west, and you can get all the high cal, and it's good high cal lime.
We're number one! We're number one!
The Pioneer brand 4-seed Endless Corn Team beat DeKalb Smart Stacks and VT4 Pro.
They scored a 7.1 bushels per acre average yield advantage across more than 24,000 comparisons.
They're coming this way.
Woo! We crushed corn rootworm!
How'd you guys do it?
3 modes of action, baby!
How'd you clobber those weeds?
Herbicide flexibility, yeah!
Another winning season.
Plant the 100th season of Pioneer. Visit pioneer.com/rootworm.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.
A season is full of numbers. 21 days scouting fields. 168 hours in the cab, 540 cups of coffee consumed. At Golden Harvest, we know your most important number doesn't just happen. Every result is built by putting in the work and making the right calls with a partner who knows your acres. See how it all adds up beyond the bushels at goldenharvestseeds.com/harvest.
You can't do the same thing and expect different results. So here's some advice. Change the seed and you'll change the game. Zitavo soybean seed is the seed you've always wanted. It's been tested again and again, going through at least 12 quality control protocols because 11 wasn't enough. All to ensure that you get consistent performance from every seed that can pay off with better soybean yield. Zitavo soybean seed is ready to raise the bar for soybeans. Are you? Learn more at xitavosoybeanseed.com. Always read and follow label directions.
I guess the biggest thing, David, is on the lime and everything. Obviously, we've given a lot of advice over the years, and there's a lot of people that buys lime just because it's lime. You really need to be, if you're looking at pH corrections, you really need to look at base saturation and choose high cal lime or base saturation, what your calcium is. And then if you're looking at your base saturation on magnesium, you maybe need to consider some dolomitic lime, and that's a big deal. Just don't buy it because it's the cheapest or the most convenient. Buy what your ground needs, and you got to pay attention to those things for sure. But David, it's our good pleasure to have Alex with us today. You kind of surprised me and reached out to him and kind of pulled this podcast together. So I'm kind of anxious to get Alex on here and find out what he's got going on. You got anything else you want to cover before we get Alex Harrell on the phone with us?
No, I don't, because I'm too anxious to see how his season's wrapped up and what he's got planned for 26. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion while we got Alex on.
Alex Harrell, the myth, the legend. Where you at, Alex? Looks like you may be in a pickup truck.
I am in a pickup truck sitting in the O'Reilly parking lot because that was the closest parking lot to me at 10 o'clock. So I just pulled it. I was headed back to the shop and had been in town and pulled in here and found a parking spot.
I got you. Well, you guys get through with peanuts. Well, you didn't have any peanuts this year. I think you quit the peanuts. You get through with, what was that?
I said I quit peanuts and cotton about 5 years ago. So
about 5 years ago. I knew that when I asked the question. So are you doing any grain sorghum or you just corn and beans?
I planted some early grain sorghum, just playing with it, just one field this year, but typically we're just corn and beans. We've been done with harvest probably a month now, maybe longer, 5-6 weeks, something like that. So
get your cover crops planted?
The one I'm going to plant, typically plant probably 90-95% of the land in cover crops. This year, probably 5%. I've got to do some dirt work on a lot of land. We got to do deep ripping this winter. I had some compaction issues and like I said, we gotta really tear the dirt up this winter. So
I was getting ready to ask you, how are you going to spread your chicken litter, with the bulldozer or a spreader?
No, I don't have the bulldozer budget right now. We'll have to use a spreader this time.
Yeah. Well,
what's chicken litter running you guys over there, spread, hauling and everything?
Anywhere, the lowest I've heard is 42, which that's the cheapest it's been in probably 3 or 4 years, but 42 to 52 delivered. Now that's not spread, that's just dumped in the field.
Yeah. Is that laying litter or broiler?
No, that's broiler from North Georgia, hauled in and dumped in the field.
Okay.
Yeah, we're running about 57 a ton dumped, and then clearly you got to spread it. So
that for several years, but nobody's buying it right now because there's not much money floating around out there. They're giving the litter away, and all you're paying for is the freight right now.
Oh, no, they had. I don't know if the people in our area, they're not giving the litter away neither. So, but delivered about 57 a ton, and then we get a crew from the western part of the state. They'll bring a couple Fendt tractors and some spreaders and a loader, and they hammer it out. And them boys like to work, so they'll be out there till wee hours in the morning and start early.
David, you've been doing chicken litter now for a couple of years, I know of. I know you played around with it a few times.
Yeah.
And I told you it's good stuff. It's just inconsistent in its application, its nutrient value is inconsistent. The way it spreads inconvenient or inconsistent. It's inconvenient too. And uh I told you it was good, and you said, "Well, what's so good about it?" I said, "I don't know. It's just good stuff." But what's your opinion now that you got 2 or 3 years under your
Um,
belt with it, other than it stinks?
well, the stinking part doesn't bother me because I don't pile it up near my house. It's all my neighbors that dislike it. But you know, phosphorus levels, we have a tendency to have a hard time to build phosphorus, particularly with commercial fertilizer, tried sludge, biosolids, pellets, and cake stuff, and still struggle with it. But the chicken litter will raise your phosphorus levels. Then I don't know if you see this, Alex, but then your zinc levels get out of balance. So then now you're spending money on, elemental zinc or zinc sulfate or something just to try to get some zinc levels back up. And hey, that's where we strip till it. And yields have been doing well, Dowdy. So, and when everybody says good stuff, and I'm like, well, how good is good stuff? In this, where we've done left strips out, and we can see, you can tell the inconsistency of it. But we'll typically see about 4 to 8 bushel better in that strip versus a commercial fertilizer that year. And then, we haven't followed it through, but soybeans, we've been putting it on beans too, and it doesn't seem to create the beans to do a whole bunch of early growth like I was concerned about fertilizer, all that nitrogen. So I know, let's see, the Willans up in Delaware in the Total Acre group, they spent a lot of time with that group and with the extension folks, and they've said that a lot of the fertilizer is really only available in the nitrogen side in about a 6 week period, and that's later in the summer. So that's kind of why I believe that the beans aren't growing too fast. But yeah, we've seen some good stuff. It is good stuff, Dowdy, as you say.
Yeah, not everybody has it at their disposal, but you know, as Alex remarked, I mean, they quickly realized what they had when the commodity prices were high. Last 2 or 3 years, I mean, I bet I've had 10 houses call me this year, and I just tell them, nope, not interested. It just I put out a lot for a lot of years, and you know, I was buying chicken litter year round, and I was the go-to guy that would take it when nobody else would. And then they went up high on the prices, and I didn't forget that. So, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Got a memory like an elephant about certain things, right? So it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm sure we'll buy some, but we're gonna see if we can't get them to remember the good old days.
Yeah.
So
Well, Alex, do you spread it yourself? Do you get somebody in with a spreader?
Typically, I've got 2 full-time Chandler spreaders, and we'll do most of it by ourselves. Yeah. Now we may call somebody in to help finish up if it starts getting late or something, but I usually 90 to 100% we'll do it ourselves with those
Yeah.
2 spreaders. It also
Yeah.
depends how wet.
Yeah, I've tried spreading it with our 800R, and it'll spread the dry stuff. It's just a lot slower. Don't have a big enough hole, the melt chain. Yeah, it's just slower. So we get somebody that's they people that are specialists in their work lane. Let's let them do it.
Yep, that's the thing with chicken litter. You've got to be set up to handle it, or it'll be a nightmare.
So, Alex, I was fortunate enough to attend your field day, and that, boy, what a good day, first and foremost. I don't know that you could have picked a better day. Good crowd. You did. There was a lot of trials. So I guess I'm more curious, did anything really stand out and pop and you're like, holy smoke, this was good?
Yeah, we had 141 trials total. That's corn and beans combined. Like I said, this was his kind of pet project. We put it up on one of our farms, and we planted it and did all the planting trials. And then after that, I gave Caleb, my uncle had a little 50 horse put out on our New Holland tractor, and we built a little 4-wheel sprayer for it. And I don't know how many hours Caleb put on that tractor spraying foliars and different things on those trials, but I mean he was out there multiple times a week. So it was really good. He's got all the data together. I hadn't really dove off in it, but I can tell you there were some Redox products they stood out. You ask if anything stood out, and those really shined. We had a couple of, we had deer damage on the soybeans, so a lot of those on the one side, we kind of had to discount the results there. But once we got past that, there were a lot of products that showed some good stuff. But we had a good source trial on soybeans. Mutiny had some stuff out there that did good, but the one that really sticks out in my mind just glancing at the results was there, and I don't even remember the name of the product, but Redox had some stuff out there, and we were consistently getting a 20 to 27 bushel response on corn out of it. So across multiple strips. Yeah.
Man,
So
you can ROI something like that now.
Yeah. I don't know how much it costs, but so, and again, it's strip trials. Y'all know how, they can be inconsistent, but you asked me if something stuck out, and that's what stuck out. So.
Well, Dowdy, while we were there. Yeah.
Say that again, Dowdy.
So stick out enough that you at least gonna try it again, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll try that again. Yep, and like I said, everything there we'll try again. We saw some, when you get that many trials, we saw some negative results. Whether the products made those actually happen, or it was just a bad strip, or whatever it is. With those trials were anywhere from 300 feet to 800 feet long, depending what block they were in, and a pivot track or a bad row or something could skew it all. That's why we tried to replicate them all multiple times. And we had our checks every 6 or 7 passes. We had an untreated check and try to keep everything consistent. But you still have to have, a couple years of data there with that. You can't just go off of those strip trials, but they did stick out to have all of those products given that kind of response on that one product. So.
Well, and having attended it, Dowdy, I know just a day or two before, I don't remember how many inches of rain he had, but if those plots weren't irrigated, they probably wouldn't have done much, because after all that rain, we still walked out there and I didn't even get mud on my shoes.
Yeah, that's why we picked that place. That's the sandiest farm we work. It's one of the weakest pieces of ground we have, and there was 2 reasons I wanted to do that. I told Caleb, I said, if it rains 5 inches before, we'll still be able to get out here. Well, it rained 9 inches the 2 days before. So we really pushed the limits on that part of it. But that's exactly why we did that. And plus that place, it doesn't hold fertility. Like I said, it's just straight beach sand. So you can really see when you apply them, they respond better on that weaker land than they do. We would go to a really high producing field and you won't see those responses as much across there. So that's the 2 reasons we picked that block. But after that rain, I'm really glad we picked that block, because we would have never been out there on some of these other. If we'd have went to one of these red clay fields, we would have been watching from a truck window.
Well, the other thing, Randy, I think I told you as well. When I got there, Alex had a root pit for some corn, and then I'd gone to another farm sometime back, and they had a soybean root pit. And Alex says, "Anything else you want?" And I said, "Well, a soybean root pit would be nice." And daggone it, if they didn't bring the backhoe and they dug up a soybean root pit, and growers, if they've never dug a root pit on their own farm, they wouldn't really understand what we're talking about. But how deep the roots went, but also, Alex, how deep the nodulization went on those soybeans. I was impressed with that.
Yep. And we ran, and another thing that impressed me too on the soybeans, and we ran the beans and the corn. We ran a ripper roller at an angle. We ran a speed disc, and we planted it all flat. So it was ripped solid. It wasn't strip tilled or anything like that. We were trying to keep everything consistent was how far the roots came out into the middle on the soybeans. You know, we lapped them up on 30-inch rows there, and you know that's something we don't typically see strip tilling. Now, whether that was just from the ripper roller shattering that, or it just being really loose beach sand, you know. But I was shocked when we dug down there to see just how far across those roots it overlapped there.
Yeah,
and then again, like you said,
know,
Caleb was pointing out just how deep down the nodulization went on those roots into the ground.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll do that same type root pit somewhere in the Midwest, and you can't power wash the dirt off the roots. But then when I get to your place, you just shake it, and all the soil falls right off.
That is, yep. We could go a mile down the road to some of the clay fields, and you'd have to power wash them off.
Yeah. Well, so season's done. You know, Alex, everybody is, you mentioned it earlier, either while we were talking today or on this or yesterday. Growers are struggling. Money wise, you know, commodity prices are cheap. If you're in cotton, you know, all that's been a struggle. What have you taken home from 25 that you're probably going to try even more so, or you really want to look at it for 26 again?
Oh, man. Yeah. And I agree with you. Everywhere in the country is bad, you know, financially in the ag world, but it seems like the Southeast, you know, we do quite a bit of traveling around and talking to farmers, and it just seems like the Southeast is in a way worse position. I mean, there was irrigated land down here that was not planted this year near me, and there's going to be even more next year. And there's mass bankruptcy, Chapter 12s for farms right now. There's farms for sale. There's farms for rent. Guys are voluntarily quitting. The banks are quitting other guys. I mean, it's really bad. So everybody here is just pinching pennies. You know, we're actually, this isn't really a agronomical practice that I'm taking into 26, but I've sat down and I kind of put a grading scale on every single farm that we worked, and we took into consideration, you know, how productive is that land? What is the water source on the land? How heavy is the wildlife pressure? How far is the, you know, the distance from our headquarters to that farm? And how high is the rent or the payment on it? And we kind of put together a grading scale on A, B, C, and F. And, you know, if those farms had two boxes were a C or an F, we're turning those farms loose just because we're losing money on them year in, year out. So for 26 going forward, that's what's going to change for us is we're letting some farms go that we've worked 15, 18 years, you know, some of them even longer, and they're not working anymore. And so we're trying to come to grasp with most of what we're turning loose is further away, and just trying to make it profitable again, because this 3 years in a row we went backwards on stuff down here, even with good crops. You know, we didn't have a really good crop overall last year, but we have this year, and in 23 we had a phenomenal crop, and just trying to figure out which farms are profitable and how to stay in the black and out of the red.
Well, you know, we did that ourselves several years ago, and you know, as growers, most growers want to get bigger. You know,
yeah,
say, hey,
yep.
And because, you know, equipment's bigger, they can go faster, they can cover more acres in a day. But at the end of the day, if you're not making money on it, you know, it's hard to give ground up. And I was talking to some folks up in Michigan last spring, and, you know, they were talking about planting some of their acres, and, you know, some of the farms they probably will consider giving up. Yet what we've been able to do, and I know you've seen this when you gave up some of your other stuff, you're just making what you have more productive. You know, spend more time on it, do a little bit more, and at the end of the day, you're probably ROIing more, generate a little bit more revenue. But the problem is that equipment still costs, and spreading it over more acres usually helps it out.
Yep. And there's a fine line there, and it gets finer and thinner every year, it seems like. And I agree with you. The reason we went out and rented more acres was equipment payments, and you spread that out, and your insurance and pretty much all your fixed costs you can spread out over more acres. But and it was really hard. I mean, I made calls last week that I never expected to make, the landowners. And I remember when I first started farming, my dad was farming, and but I had to go find my own land. And I mean, I knocked on doors and sent out letters and cold calls, and I spent years to gain all that ground. And then I make phone calls and tell them I'm turning it loose, and that was, I was torn on doing that, but I just think it was the right thing to do. And I'm going to cut out about 40% of our acres, I think, is where we're going to be at. And we're going to be a lot closer to home. And we kept our more productive land. So like you were saying, hopefully our APH will go up on the farms we are keeping. So.
Yeah.
So who's got this ground up? I mean,
nobody. That's the thing. Nobody's renting it. There's a lot of land going to lay out this year, or in 26 there will be.
You think the landowner will put it in CRP?
Some of it needs to be. Now obviously productive irrigated land is going to be farmed by somebody, but we're not letting that go. We're letting our lesser farms go. And I called 10 landowners last week. They were anywhere from 200 acres to 40 acres. And one of them was actually bigger than that. And out of 10, only one of them even hinted that they would consider going down on land rent. So I kind of found that funny. I think they're still under the assumption they can get top dollar rent right now. And there's just, in 3-4 years ago, they could have, but it's just not going to happen right now. I've never seen this much land go, come up at one time. So not sure what's going to happen. The next 6 months will tell a lot.
Well, you might see somebody move in and think they can gobble it up and then turn it into something.
Yep.
The problem is it's a big risk. And anytime you expand acres, the toughest thing about picking up acres, and we've done it ourselves, you don't have any income to help pay for it. So this is straight out of the checking account. And then, going to the bank and borrowing. And then now when you give up all those acres, Alex, now you're going to have a tax problem. Because now you don't have expenses to offset it.
Well, last 3 years has kind of solved my tax issues. I can tell you.
Yeah. I hear you.
No, like I said, and I know you probably want to know something I was going to do on the farm, but going forward, that's really what we're focusing on right now is cutting out those lesser productive acres and making the ones that we are keeping more productive. Because we've got to make more yield on those acres and do a better job on them. And I think we can. We're not going to be. I was going 28 miles west and I was going 22 miles east. So whatever that's 50 miles one way to the other. Now my furthest farm will be 8 miles from my shop now. So that I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting all this big equipment off the road as much. And so I don't know. We'll see. It may be the wrong decision, but that's kind of I've worked it every way I can, and that's kind of the only way that I can figure we can keep it in the black.
As growers wrapping up 2025 and trying to make a plan for what to do for 26, we think about 26. Fertilizer prices are going to be high. We anticipate them high. They're already a little higher. Nitrogen maybe not so, but we know phosphate's higher. Potash isn't as high as it has been in the past. What can growers do? Well, cover crops is a great option. We got fertility in the soil. You put some nitrogen on the ground. Nitrogen's a mobile nutrient. Other nutrients that are mobile like potash and boron, sulfur. You plant a cover crop, it's going to pick up those nutrients, bring it into the residue, and then when you kill that cover crop, now you can just recycle that residue that was left over, or the residual nutrients that were left over. Other benefits clearly are soil erosion, wind erosion. Now, when's the best time to plant it? And I think about the Midwest because oftentimes, the Midwest gets worried about, hey, we're going to run out of time. What's conditions like? As soon as you get the crop harvested, it would be good to get a cover crop planted if you're thinking about it, because then you can get as much of a root system as possible before it turns cold. And then also, you'll be able to capture all the benefits from erosion, and whether it's water or wind erosion. There are certain programs, NRCS offers certain programs. With the water quality situation we have on the East Coast, there are programs there. So that could be another little bit of a revenue stream for a grower. Then you start thinking about the other benefits. You got biology there. When you kill that cover crop and you plant your original crop next year, now you got biology already on the roots. How important is that? You ask any grower that plants cover crops and they'll explain to you how important that biology is. And there are all sorts of cover crops, from legumes to grasses to cereals to radishes. Just play with some. And then, we don't have to be a no-tiller. You can strip till into those cover crops, or early in the spring, you can work the cover crops in. So I'm not saying you have to be a no-tiller to do cover crops. If you hadn't done them, this might be a good year to experiment with them. Particularly as warm as it is in the Midwest, you got a chance to get some growth in 25.
A season is full of numbers. 21 days scouting fields. 168 hours in the cab. 540 cups of coffee consumed. At Golden Harvest, we know your most important number doesn't just happen. Every result is built by putting in the work and making the right calls with a partner who knows your acres. See how it all adds up beyond the bushels at goldenharvestseeds.com/harvest.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastack trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force, outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastack.com. Available for the 2027 season.
You can't do the same thing and expect different results. So here's some advice. Change the seed and you'll change the game. Zitavo soybean seed is the seed you've always wanted. It's been tested again and again, going through at least 12 quality control protocols because 11 wasn't enough. All to ensure that you get consistent performance from every seed that can pay off with better soybean yield. Zitavo soybean seed is ready to raise the bar for soybeans. Are you? Learn more at xitavosoybeanseed.com. Always read and follow label directions.
Are you struggling with messy field residue? Calmer has the solution to take your harvest to the next level. Calmer BT Chopper stalk rolls cut, chop, and shear corn stalks into confetti-like pieces, resulting in faster residue decomposition, easier planting, and higher yields. You can upgrade your current OEM corn head with Calmer's entire corn head upgrade kit. Calmer also builds fully customizable corn heads that are compatible with any combine and come equipped with our entire line of patented residue management parts. If you order by December 31st, 2025, you'll receive free header height on your new head, a $4,000 savings. If you're fighting rotor loss and finding unthreshed pods in your grain tank, Calmer's newest product, the High Performance Concave Upgrade Kit, can help. Using Calmer's patented inserts and cover plates, you can switch between corn, soybeans, or small grains efficiently without changing the concaves. Call us at 309-629-9000 or visit calmercornheads.com to learn more.
Yeah, so Alex, one of the things, you mentioned you did some grain sorghum, and we look at grain sorghum. We got Smoothfield in the area, and they like to buy grain sorghum to help feed the pigs, but you grew some this past season, and I didn't know if it was because of drought resistance or double crop. Why'd you do it, and what'd you think?
No, it wasn't drought resistant. I actually put it on a high producing irrigated field pivot, and it was full season. It wasn't double crop, and we wanted to just see what we could do with grain sorghum. I mean, I put 3 varieties out there, and we planted 3 populations within each variety. So we had 9 blocks. We treated it like high yielding corn just because I'm not really sure how to grow grain sorghum. So we went into it with the approach kind of our same corn program. I was talking to a couple of guys that are high yielding sorghum growers, and we did change up some stuff. I had no idea grain sorghum took up as much potassium as it does. So we actually put out more potash than we did nitrogen. But our goal was just to see how much we could make. And the one I learned that I'm not a grain sorghum grower. And I learned I'm not a good judge of grain sorghum at all, because going into it, I thought one variety would be substantially better than the other two, and I thought one variety was substantially worse. And turns out I was dead wrong. They were complete opposite. The one that didn't look as good ended up being our highest yielding, and the one that looked phenomenal was, I mean, it didn't make 70 bushels under pivot, high and high yielding environment. And I learned a lot. Not sure if I'll do it again. It was fun to play with, but it lost money all the way across. I can tell you that. But we ended up averaging, I don't know, 125, 130, somewhere in there, overall of it. We had spots hitting 170, 180, 190. Didn't see any 200. That's what we were shooting for. Didn't really see any of that anywhere. But did learn a lot from it. Weed control or grass control is a big deal for it, and that's a problem for us.
How'd you manage the grass and weeds?
We sprayed dual magnum behind the planter and watered in, and then we plowed it once, and then after that, and it was fairly clean for the most part, but we had pockets that had grass, and you'd see, 50-60% reduction on the yield monitor when you hit those pockets going through those grassy areas. So broadleafs aren't a problem. We can spray atrazine and clean those up, and a couple other things, but the Texas panicum's a problem for us. So
need you to break out your old cotton hook sprayer.
Yeah, that's what it would take. I've done sold all that stuff, so I didn't have a choice but not grow cotton again. So, but no, it was a fun experiment. I had 70 acres, and like I said, 3 varieties we did, and I was shocked. I thought people were planting grain sorghum entirely too thick, and I thought lower populations would tiller out and make up the difference and make more robust heads and have more girth, and I was dead wrong on that. The thicker we planted, the better the yield was. And I don't know if that was just the 3 varieties we picked, and other varieties would tiller more than those.
Any problems with lodging? Any problems with the lodging? Any problems with the lodging as you went up in population?
Nope. We didn't have any lodging issues whatsoever. Now, I didn't go, I planted 120,000 was the thickest I planted. I guess if you went up from that, you could, but we didn't have any problems with it. Nope.
You plan on 30-inch rows?
30-inch rows, yep.
Just, I guess you wide side dressed it and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, we put in furrow, we put the 3x3 starter, we wide dropped it, we foliar fed it, fungicide, the full thing. We were shooting. I wanted a 200 bushel check out of it. And like I said, we weren't even close to getting a full check out of that, but we saw several spots north of 150, but I never saw any 200. So, like I said, I learned a lot from it.
You gonna try it again?
Sounds like you learned not to do that again.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do it again or not. I probably won't do 70 acres, but I might do a spot. But I don't know. It's not as fun to grow as corn. I can tell you that. And I tell you, if you don't realize how many blackbirds are in the area until you plant some grain sorghum. They all show up. So I don't know how much they actually ate, but they ate their fair share of it. But no.
Yeah. Well, Alex, you're always doing a couple things a little different, trying to grain sorghum. But I remember seeing some pictures this past spring where you did some 30-inch row wheat.
We did.
I know we had some discussion on wheat. Wheat's hard to make money right now on it.
Yep.
But
so is grain sorghum.
So I'm anxious to hear what you thought on the 30-inch row wheat, because you got, we drill it. We're 7.5 inch, and a lot of people I do see the value of planting it with a planter, because you can get uniform depth, consistent depth, and you get consistent emergence. And just like we talk about doing flagging trials with corn, I've done it with wheat, and the first ones that come up, they tiller more. You got more heads.
And those that come up later tell her less. But I'm anxious to hear how the 30-inch did. You know, I know you had struggles, but it intrigues me.
Yep. No, if I did that again, I would do it with a planter, but I actually did not. I just plugged the holes on a grain drill, so we didn't get. It was a last minute thing. We did some 7.5-inch row. We did some 15-inch row. I did 2 7.5-inch rows with a 15-inch skip, kind of like a twin row type deal. And then we did a 30-inch, and we did it all with the same box drill. We just taped over the holes. The planter may be different, but 30-inch wheat did not work for us. It was all 30 bushels from the solid row, 25 to 30 bushels. Weed control was a problem. We could not keep the weeds back in it. It's just too big of a gap. We tried multiple populations on it. They all yielded about the same. Now, that being said, the 15-inch and the twin row out yielded the 7.5-inch. It was 30-inch was the worst, and 7.5. The best was the 15-inch and the twin row. They were right there together on every. And we did this in multiple fields in multiple counties, and it was pretty much consistent all the way across it. And I'm not a high yield wheat guy by any means, but our 15-inch and our twin row was running 100 to 110 bushels. The 7.5-inch was running around 90 to 95, and the 30-inch was running around 60. Okay, so it was a big drop on the 30-inch, and I think it was weed pressure more than anything, honestly.
Well, I mean, I just hearing guys talk. I know John Coots up in Wisconsin. He does that relay crop. He does corn. I mean, he does wheat and soybeans. You know, he's using a planter, and he talks about the consistent depth and all, and uniform emergence. And you know, that's just big. When you know, using the drill, I don't get that, and we still do the drill. And we finished planting. I didn't try anything. I guess I wish I'd have talked to you before, and maybe we'd have tried some of that 15-inch stuff, plug up some holes, because it's pretty easy to do.
Are you done planting now?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, everything's wrapped up. The guys, they finished washing the drill and the tractor yesterday, so I'm not going back out there. So we're done.
The 15-inch is good.
Yeah. What was that, Randy?
Sounds like you need to go plant some at Curl's Neck.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the geese would appreciate it without a doubt.
It'll give them a gap to walk in while they eat it.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they make their own path. That's for sure. That was something we've been talking about wildlife earlier before you got on, Alex. You mentioned deer, and you know I hear growers that have talked to you. One of the things that they take home is how much deer pressure is in Georgia. You know, our average field size is just right around 20 acres. You got some small fields and large fields, but we both have woods in common. And people in the Midwest don't understand how much that impacts us.
It is. It's a big problem. You know, everybody wants to talk about the wild hogs down here, and that, don't get me wrong, that's a problem. But you know, with hogs, we can trap a whole group of them, and we're good till another group comes in. And during the summer, we can drop dogs in a cornfield, and we can run hogs out of a cornfield, and they're good for a week or two. But deer, I mean, even with the permits where we shoot them, you shoot them and leave and come back by 10 minutes later, they're right back out there. And they are without a doubt our most yield limiting factor on soybeans. And it's getting to be that way on corn. I mean, they're eating whole corn stalks now, but soybeans, 70% of my land, I can't grow soybeans on anymore. And we've got a couple of rented farms that, you know, deer hunters they bought those farms to deer hunt, so they don't want to shoot deer, but you know, we just can't grow it on it. I mean, it's unreal. It's nothing to see 100 deer in a field at night with a thermal scope. So now there's products coming out that you can spray, and I think you tried some this year that worked really good, and we've yet to find one that works. So maybe that'll be the one, but they're a bad problem for us.
Yeah, we've tried some products, and you know they work for a little while, but the deer, you know, they're going to eat something. And
Yep.
like you said, they get to where they go corn. I mean, they like one hybrid better. And, we split our planter up with 2 different hybrids, and they'll find the one that they like the best and they'll eat that hybrid.
Yep.
And then you say, okay, well, this one they didn't eat. So I plant that next year with another hybrid, and they might like the one that they didn't eat their previous year better than the other one.
That's
So
right. Yeah, they're a
never
big
know.
problem. They are now. We've got some confirmed cases in Georgia of EHD and chronic wasting disease now, so I don't know if that's gonna come through and thin them out or what'll happen with that. But here lately, they've had confirmed cases of both in the last 2 to 3 months. So
CWD ain't killing deer. From somebody that's in the deer business, CWD's been around since the 60s.
What about the EHD?
It's been in elk and it's been in whitetails, and CWD, it's a prion, it's a protein, prion, whatever you want to call it. A deer may die of pneumonia, but he's not dying of CWD. It's a money grabbing thing from the state. All states have just about got documented cases now. Deer, that's not the disease that's going to kill. Blue tongue or EHD is the killer. There's no doubt about it. And if you really want to hurt your hunting, or help your farming, however you want to look at it, EHD comes through. Ask the boys in Ohio this year. They'll tell you, Southern Michigan. EHD comes through, it'll wipe out herds. And there is no...
Well, you in the deer business, if you get me a jug of some EHD, I'll spray it out of my spray drone over here.
There you go. It's by a midge is actually what it is. It's a fly.
Yeah, that's what I had read about.
So that's the problem, especially in dry years. It's a problem. But that's
dry years, it makes it worse.
Absolutely, 100%. So, with all your irrigated ground, that's where you're gonna make your best yields anyhow. But on the dry years, because sunshine's gonna be a premium, as long as you can make it rain. But EHD with deer by far is the killer. CWD is just it's the hype, but by far population control is happening with EHD more so. Some people
Well,
know
they've
it's
had,
blue
I think, three confirmed cases in Georgia of EHD in the last couple of months. One of them was in Terrell County, which joins me, but I don't know if it's going to spread or not. I mean, I hate to wish that on an animal, but something's got to happen. I mean, there's entirely too many.
Well, the EHD piece of it, the threat of it's once you get some frost, it pretty much the threat of it goes down. If you're gonna have EHD, it's gonna be spring and summer, and early fall. Now at this point, now that we've had a frost, it pretty much that threat subsides. So your best risk, your best hope right now is that they increase doe days. Hunters wake up and start shooting does and quit thinking that does create big bucks and get past that theory of we won't see anything and shoot some animals, and then insurance company is going to put a bounty at some point. My brother-in-law lives in Lee County, and man, he drives to Albany every day, and he's just north of Sylvester over there, and he goes to Lee County and Albany, and I think he in the last 2 years. He's had his truck in the body shop 6 or 7 times for 6 or 7 different deer. So it's a problem.
It is. Yeah. Our Farm Bureau office here in Leesburg, where I'm sitting now, there's 3,300 people live in Leesburg. We've got one insurance office. They average 2.5 deer claims a day here at that one Farm Bureau office. So it's a major problem. So.
Wow. Well, Alex, you talked about giving up land, getting rid of some land that was marginal because you had acres that you're trying to spread costs across. That's a tough decision to make. It's not easy to get it back, and there will be some people that are diverse that have, produce in the mix, different things that was going to go in and going to gobble this ground up. It's going to happen. And some of them got enough deep pockets. They got enough funding from USDA at the FFSA office, et cetera. They're going to gobble all they can as they get if they smell it, they're gonna be a vulture. They're gonna be over the top of it, and they're gonna gobble it up as they get opportunity. But when you talk about the land you're gonna keep, obviously you talk about distance being a play, but you talk about making it more productive. Do you think that just the fact that you were stretched out, and that your timeliness and attention to detail is where the yield's going to come from, or is there anything specific that you're going to
I
do?
think, well, I mean, those farms are not, they're just better land. So they're making, our overall farm average should go up just by keeping our higher productive ground, but making those farms more productive. I think just the timeliness of everything is going to help us out. I've heard you say it before over the years, the difference in a good farmer and a great farmer is 3 or 4 days. And that's absolutely true. So, if we can get in there and make an application the day we need to and not the week we need to, I feel like we can gain some bushels there and gain some yield across all of them there. And that's the big thing for us, is what I'm going to be focusing on, is just being more timely with applications, whether that's foliar applications or herbicide, or, we all know what can happen. You get past 450 GDUs with herbicide. And I mean, I'll sit here and tell you, I've done that just because I had too much to spray. So that's where we're hoping we can gain some yield by dropping acres.
When you start talking about, you got farms that you can't grow beans on. You got a lot of pressure there. Are you going to pretty much still be 50-50? What do you expect for 26?
No, I'm not 50-50 now. I'm probably 90% corn, 10% beans right now. 80-20 is about the highest we would go. So I mean, we're mainly corn. We let pretty much all the non-irrigated land go. Just kept the irrigated there. So we're a lot of corn on corn down here. I don't have the residue issue like our buddies in the Midwest. So we can get rid of the residue, and corn on corn doesn't scare me, as we can just get by with it a lot better.
Are you going to are you planting beans behind corn as a double crop? Or
no, I know y'all used to do that a lot, and I got buddies that do in the South, and it just doesn't quite work for us. I don't know if I'm just a little bit too far north, or, if beans are $16, $17, I can make it work. I can't make it work with $10 or $11. It's just a break even or lose money deal. We can't ever get over about that 25 bushel mark with beans behind corn. I think you were making 40, 45 bushels, 50 bushels behind corn.
Depending on if we had a Halloween frost. We got a Halloween frost. It was a bad day. But if we got a Thanksgiving frost, mid-November Thanksgiving frost, I mean, we'd be in that 40s. We've touched 50, but for the most part, we've been in the 40s on the second crop. But you also had to have it planted by around the 5th or 6th of August too. The sooner the better. Now, where's your market? Where are you taking corn? I mean, what's your basis look like?
I've got good basis up here. I got a big dairy right here 3 miles from my shop. So I take probably a third of my corn there, and I can get anywhere from 60 cents to $1 over the board for all of it, depending on what month we deliver it. And then the rest of it's going to chicken feed. We go to Tyson, we go to they just sold, I can't remember what the name is, Tyson still, I think. But we'll go to Camilla with some down the central states, and then we go north with most of it to all the chicken farms but cows and chickens.
Well, there was a ton of farms last year that got planted in corn with the whole RMA insurance, non-irrigated. They're going to make some money, because most years you don't make dryland corn. There was good insurance premium, and this year it rained. They made corn. They had to figure out how to harvest it and all that. And it destroyed. There was so much corn around. It destroyed. It destroyed the market in the South. And because they were opportunists, people didn't have a place to store it. And the basis went out the window because they didn't have to. And a lot of guys needed to get the crop harvested. So do you think a lot of farmers are going to take and go back down that path and plant corn this year? You know how a southern farmer is. We make decisions on acres typically about February the 29th.
That's right. That's right. I don't know. And I'm with you. I saw all that corn being planted and talking to people, and we went ahead and we contracted all ours. We didn't lock a price in on all of it, but we went ahead and locked basis in because I don't want to say I knew it was coming, but I had a good idea. I said, if it ends up raining and all this dry land corn makes, I said, bases are going to go to nothing. And they did. So I was fortunate enough that we locked those bases in and had that. But going forward, I don't know if they're going to plant corn again. Because a lot of them, like you said, they weren't expecting to make a crop, and they did make a crop, and then they didn't have a harvester, they didn't have a combine, they didn't have anywhere to put it, no grain bins. Told somebody I should have been in the grain bagger business because I had people calling from all over wanting to know where to buy a bagging machine to bag corn up, and a lot of it's still sitting in the bags because there's nowhere to go with it because everywhere is full. Georgia can only handle so much corn, especially during harvest, and the bins are full, the bags are full, and it's just running out of everybody's ears now. So, farmers have short-term memory, and that's what they're going to be thinking about going forward is all that corn is still sitting in the bags right now, but they don't have anywhere to go with. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if the cotton guys that went away from cotton are going to go back to corn again.
Yeah, but one of the things that they did do, they raised their APH because they had a crop.
Yep, that's exactly right. They were all working off county average because these guys never planted corn, and they just all planted dry land corn because cotton just absolutely did not pencil out, and it went to raining this summer. Man, these guys were hoping to make 30 bushels, made 130, 150 bushel corn. So no, it'll be interesting to see, and we need cotton to come back up, not so I can grow it, but so everybody else can go back to growing it. These elevator lines and bases can go back up, the lines can go down. Because that's what's killing us right now is all the cotton acres converted over.
It's going to be interesting. I can tell you, David, we talk about a lot of different things, and in the Southeast, we do have a different scenario. There's a lot of cotton here, and it rotates well with peanuts. And there was a ton of peanuts, no pun intended, peanuts planted last year. The prices are horrible. A lot of people putting them in at loan, getting $385, should be $550 to $600. There's a ton of peanuts. There was a quality issue year before last. This year, and people made peanuts. They were planted from wall to wall. They didn't plant cotton. It's about the only crop that will do okay non-irrigated is peanuts. It's kind of like cotton. You got an indeterminate plant there. When it starts to rain, when you get the rain, it puts on a crop, right? And hopefully you got enough to finish that particular crop, but it can have different stage crops. The bottom of the plant on cotton, or the middle of the plant, or the top of the plant, or on peanuts, you may have a root crop or a limb crop. Just depends on when it rains. But now peanut prices are horrible. Cotton prices are in the tank, and there's a ton of non-irrigated acres out there that cannot grow reliably beans or corn on them for deer pressure or just the fact that they got to have rain too. We got a perfect storm here that's going to be very interesting as to what decisions are made in the future, because we just don't know what to do at this point. There's going to be a lot of farmers scratching their head in the Southeast. Cotton needs to be 80 cents, or these boys, I don't know what's going to go on these dryland acres, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, well, maybe some of it can go back in pine trees or pecan orchards or groves or whatever.
Yeah, we just another hurricane take all them out again. There's the pecan prices. The pecan prices are terrible, and all the pine tree farmers are, the market's glutted on that because of all the damage from the hurricanes, and they got 40 years in it, didn't get anything for them, and now they got to clean them up. And it's tough down in the South. I can just tell you.
Well, I think it's tough everywhere, Dowdy. I don't think it's just the South. The Midwest is struggling. Ag is just and this isn't the first time. This would be, in my career, probably the third downturn in ag, and it typically comes back. I'm not going to say it definitely will, but we're tightening our belts, and do the things that we know pay. And I've heard you say farmers will never give up things that they know pay. We just do those and, be very cautious. I've heard Alex talk about it. Not going to spend any money wastefully. So that's what growers are going to turn and do. And we're going to get past it. And those acres at some point in time, they're going to get gobbled back up. They're going to be farmed. It's just maybe not this year.
Well, and words of wisdom, David, we got to shut this thing down. Give me a nugget. What should I do this year in 2026? Randy Dowdy wants to make some profitable corn, and he wants to make some profitable beans. And I want to do something. I really want to be able to. I understand what I've been doing. Give me a nugget of something that maybe I should try for next year that maybe the listener may or may not do it. We gave you reverence earlier. We gave you due respects by calling you King David. So you the king of corn. And give us, for those that are waiting for a nugget this whole hour we've been on the phone, give us a nugget of something that farmers maybe should.
I'm ready. Pioneer 18216. There you go.
You heard it first, Alex.
Yep.
Hey, did you have any of that this year, David?
I did, and it was by far our best corn.
Yeah, I had 10 bags of it, and that's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It won every trial around here by a lot.
Yep.
So
there you go. There's that nugget you were looking for, Dowdy.
Well,
I don't know if it worked well in North Dakota, but I know it'll work well in the Southeast.
There you go. Well, fellas, it's been good to be on here. Hopefully we didn't get everybody depressed talking about the challenges, but I think everybody's saying, yeah, they got them too. They're not living in the Garden of Eden or where the land flows with milk and honey. But it's always good to be with you two. David, my good pleasure. Be careful out here. I know you got a bunch of lime to spread. You got to be getting in the short rows. I don't know how much you got left, but I know you. Miss Sandy's probably ready to take her to Hawaii or something over the winter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, as always, likewise, Dowdy, always fun. Alex, I appreciate you being part of the podcast. And
thanks for having me.
We did it in Moline there in the John Deere store area. That one, one of the earlier ones. And for those that are listening, may God bless all the seeds you sow, and please be safe and look for us on the podcast through Farm Journal TV and all the other places you can find podcasts.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.